The departure's shadow. The wheels of Nathan Reeves's rental car crunched along the gravel road as Cedarbrook Lake came into view, its surface shimmering like scattered diamonds beneath the September sun. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white as the familiar landmarks of his hometown emerged from the landscape like ghosts. 10 years. He'd managed to stay away for 10 years, building a respectable career as a session musician in Nashville, constructing a life where no one knew about the promises he'd broken or the heart he'd left shattered beside this very lake. But his grandfather's voice on the phone last, weak, frailer than Nathan had ever heard it, had made staying away impossible, just passing through. He muttered to himself as the road curved around the lake's edge. Handle Grandpa Joe's medical arrangements, maybe stay through the weekend. Then back to real life. The town square appeared much as he'd left it. The clock tower still 5 minutes slow, Henley's general store with its faded awning, the gazebo where he'd first kissed Olivia Winters beneath the twinkling Christmas lights their senior year. He swallowed hard at the memory. Olivia. The girl with auburn hair and eyes the color of honey whiskey who'd believed in his music before anyone else. The girl he'd left with nothing but a coward's goodbye note because he couldn't bear to see disappointment in those eyes when he chose Nashville over their plans. Nathan parked outside Lakeview Assisted Living, a new addition to Cedarbrook that somehow looked like it had always been there. Inside, the receptionist's eyes widened in recognition. "Nathan Reeves! My goodness, is that really you? Your grandfather's been telling everyone his famous grandson was coming home." "Not famous," Nathan corrected, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just a working musician." "That's not what Joe says," she smiled, pressing a visitor badge into his palm. "Room 112 down the hall. He's having a good day today." Grandfather Joe sat by the window, thin fingers tapping rhythmically against his knee, a musician's habit that apparently hadn't faded with age. When he spotted Nathan, his weathered face creased with joy. "There's my boy," he said, voice stronger than it had sounded on the phone. "Took you long enough to visit an old man?" Nathan embraced him gently, alarmed by how fragile Joe felt beneath his flannel shirt. "Sorry, Grandpa. Nashville keeps me busy." "Nashville," Joe snorted. "That place stole you from us." "From her, too." Nathan stiffened. "I didn't come back to talk about Olivia." "No? Then you'll be avoiding Winter's music shop. She owns it now, you know. Took over after her father's condition worsened." Nathan hadn't known. He deliberately avoided looking up anyone from Cedarbrook, especially her. "Dad mentioned something about dementia?" Joe nodded soberly. 3 years back. Thomas Winters doesn't recognize most folks anymore. Recognizes music, though, that's the miracle. And Olivia stayed, cared for him, built that shop into something special. The unspoken comparison hung between them. While Olivia had faced life's hardships with courage, Nathan had run from commitment at the first opportunity. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," Nathan said firmly. "Doctor says your heart needs monitoring." "I'm thinking we should get you to Nashville, see some specialists there." "Nonsense," Joe interrupted, blue eyes flashing with the stubborn spark that Nathan remembered well. "I'm not leaving Cedarbrook. Besides, the timing's perfect. You're back just in time for the Fall Music Festival. Committee's been scrambling since Darren Phillips broke his arm. They need a guitarist who knows the traditional pieces." "I'm not staying for any festival," Nathan protested. But Joe was already reaching for a folder on his nightstand. "Festival program," he explained, pressing it into Nathan's hands. "Meetings tomorrow night at the community center. 7 sharp. Grandpa, I can't." "You can and you will," Joe said with quiet authority. "Some things need finishing, Nathan. Some songs need their final verse." That evening, unpacking in his grandfather's lakeside cabin, Nathan found himself standing on the dock where he'd once promised Olivia forever. The water lapped gently against the weathered wood, and somewhere in the distance, a solitary guitar played a melody that drifted across the lake, haunting and familiar, like a love song left unfinished. Tomorrow he would need to face the music. Dissonant reunions. The Cedarbrook Community Center buzzed with activity as Nathan slipped through the double doors, 20 minutes late and hoping to blend into the background. His strategy failed instantly as conversation halted, heads turned, and whispers rippled through the room like stones disturbing still water. "Nathan Reeves! Well, I'll be—" Harriet Donovan, his former English teacher and apparently the festival committee chair, bustled toward him. "Your grandfather said you might come, but I hardly believed it." "Nashville's golden boy, back home at last." Nathan winced at the description. "Just helping Grandpa Joe out." "Nothing permanent?" Of course," Harriet nodded, though her knowing smile suggested she thought otherwise. "We're discussing stage arrangements." "Take a seat. There's coffee in the back." The only available chair was directly across from a woman whose auburn hair was gathered in a loose knot at the nape of her neck. She didn't look up as he approached, her attention fixed on the clipboard in her lap. But Nathan knew those hands, slender fingers that could coax the sweetest notes from piano keys, that had once traced patterns on his skin under summer stars. "As I was saying," Olivia Winters continued, her voice steady and professional, "if we move the children's choir performance earlier, we can accommodate the stage transition for the—" She glanced up, amber eyes meeting his for the first time in a decade, and faltered for just a heartbeat before recovering. "For the main acts." The meeting proceeded with excruciating professionalism. Nathan contributed little, mesmerized by how time had transformed the girl he'd left behind. Olivia had always been pretty, but now she carried herself with quiet confidence, her features more defined, her occasional smile never quite reaching her eyes when they landed on him. When Harriet announced that Nathan would replace Darren as lead guitarist for the festival finale, Olivia's clipboard clattered to the floor. "Is that wise?" she asked, retrieving her papers. "Nathan's only here temporarily. We need someone reliable." The words stung precisely as intended. "I can handle it," Nathan replied, meeting her challenge. "Unless you doubt my abilities." "Your abilities were never in question," she said coolly. "Your commitment, however—" After the meeting dispersed, Nathan followed her into the parking lot. "Olivia, wait!" She turned, her expression carefully composed. "What do you need, Nathan?" What did he need? Forgiveness? Understanding? How's your father?" Something softened in her face. "He has good days and bad. Music helps. He still plays sometimes, though he can't remember the names of the songs." "I'm sorry." "That must be difficult." "Life is full of difficult things," she said simply. "We adapt." The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words. "The music shop. Grandpa said you own it now." She nodded. "Someone needed to preserve what matters in this town." The implication hung heavy. "I'd like to see it sometime," Nathan ventured. "We're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. Her professional smile returned. "The festival rehearsal schedule is in your packet. Don't be late. Some of us can't afford the luxury of wasted time." She drove away, leaving Nathan standing beneath the streetlight, a peculiar ache in his chest that no Nashville success had ever managed to fill. The following day, Nathan found himself outside Winter's music shop. Its freshly painted blue exterior and charming window display a stark contrast to the struggling store he remembered. Inside, instruments lined the walls, gleaming under warm lighting. A teenage girl practiced scales on a keyboard, while Olivia adjusted her hand position with gentle guidance. "Relax your wrist, Emma. Music should flow, not force." The girl's face brightened as she tried again, the melody smoother. "That's better." "Much better," Olivia agreed, looking up as the door chime announced Nathan's entrance. "Practice those exercises this week. Tell your mom we can discuss the recital options when she picks you up." As the student gathered her music books, Olivia approached the counter, her professional mask firmly in place. "Welcome to Winter's Music. How can I help you?" "I need guitar strings," Nathan said, though they both knew he could have ordered any supplies online. "And maybe some local insight on the festival pieces. Aisle 3 for strings. The festival music is standard Cedarbrook tradition, nothing a Nashville professional can't handle." The door chimed again as Emma left, and they were alone in the shop. Nathan wandered toward a display of handcrafted guitars, admiring a particular cedar-top acoustic. "This is beautiful craftsmanship." "Dad made that one," Olivia said, unexpected pride warming her voice. "Before his diagnosis. It was the last instrument he completed. Nathan ran his fingers reverently along the smooth wood. Thomas always was an artist. He asked about you, she said suddenly. Last year, during one of his clear moments. Wanted to know if you'd made it big like you planned? Nathan's throat tightened. What did you tell him? I said you were doing exactly what you'd always wanted. Her eyes met his, unblinking. Was I wrong? Before he could answer, the back door opened, and Thomas Winters shuffled in, guided by a middle-aged woman Nathan didn't recognize. He was getting restless at home, the caregiver explained. Sometimes being here calms him. Thomas's gaze wandered the shop without recognition until it landed on Nathan. For a moment, confusion clouded his features. Then, startlingly, clarity. The Miller boy, he said, his voice thinner than Nathan remembered. You wanted my Olivia. Dad, this is Nathan Reeves, Olivia corrected gently. Remember? My friend from high school? Thomas frowned, the moment of lucidity slipping away. Does he play? Yes, Dad. Nathan plays the guitar. Thomas nodded, satisfied with this information. Music remains when everything else disappears, he said, with unexpected wisdom. Even love. Nathan felt the weight of those words long after he left the shop. Guitar strings in hand, the cedar instrument's image burned in his memory, a testament to beauty created by hands that now couldn't remember their own craft. Harmonies of Truth. The rehearsal space behind the community center smelled of dust and nostalgia. Nathan tuned his guitar while the volunteer band, a mix of Cedar Brook's finest amateur musicians, arranged their sheet music. Olivia arrived last, sliding onto the piano bench without acknowledging him. Let's start with the festival opener, suggested Bernie Walsh, a retired music teacher conducting the ensemble. Cedar Brook Sunrise, everyone remember it? The melody was embedded in Nathan's muscle memory, a simple, hopeful tune that had opened the festival since before he was born. His fingers found the chords without conscious thought, and when Olivia's piano joined his guitar introduction, the harmony was so perfect it physically hurt. They moved through the set list efficiently until reaching the final piece. Lakewater Reflections, a complicated local composition that had always featured a piano and guitar duet. Traditionally, Bernie explained unnecessarily, this would be Olivia and Darren's showcase. But since Nathan's filling in, Olivia's back stiffened. I've been practicing with Leanna's backup. She can step in. Nonsense, Bernie dismissed. Nathan's perfectly capable. You two used to play this beautifully together. That was a long time ago, Olivia said, but acquiesced, positioning her hands over the keys. The duet began tentatively, Nathan following Olivia's lead, but muscle memory soon gave way to genuine feeling as they fell into the familiar dance of notes. Halfway through, Olivia departed from the traditional arrangement, adding a minor chord progression that transformed the piece into something more complex, more haunting. Nathan followed intuitively, his guitar weaving around her innovation. The rest of the band watched in silent appreciation as the two musicians communicated without words, building to a crescendo that wasn't written in any sheet music in Cedar Brook. When the final notes faded, the rehearsal room remained silent for several heartbeats. Well, Bernie said finally, clearing his throat, I think we've found our closing arrangement. After rehearsal, Nathan caught up to Olivia in the parking lot. That wasn't the traditional arrangement. I've made some modifications over the years, she replied, keys jingling in her hand. It's beautiful. More honest somehow? Things change, Nathan. Music should reflect that. She hesitated. Would you like to see what else has changed? Dad's having a good evening, according to his caretaker. The Winters' home sat on a quiet street lined with maples beginning to turn golden. Inside, Thomas dozed in a recliner while the caretaker, introduced as Monica, prepared to leave. He's been quite present today, she reported. Even played a little. The living room had been converted to accommodate Thomas's condition. Photographs labeled with names, color-coded pathways, a simplified piano keyboard beside his chair. But the wall of family photos remained untouched, and Nathan noticed with a pang that he still appeared in several. His arm around Olivia at graduation, playing guitar on the dock, Laughing with Thomas in the workshop. You didn't take these down, he observed quietly. They're Dad's memories. Not mine, Olivia replied, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. Thomas stirred, blinking at Nathan with the same confused recognition from the shop. You're here to play music. If you'd like, Mr. Winters. Thomas gestured to a guitar case in the corner. That one. Olivia, play with him. They performed an old folk song Thomas had taught them both, Nathan on guitar, Olivia singing softly. Thomas smiled, tapping his foot, occasionally humming along. You two, he said afterward with unexpected clarity, always made better music together than apart. Later, after Thomas had been settled for bed, they sat on the front porch swing that had witnessed countless teenage conversations. You stayed, Nathan said finally. When his condition worsened, you stayed. Olivia gazed at the street where fallen leaves danced in the evening breeze. He needed me. The shop needed someone. The choice wasn't difficult. You had dreams too, Liv. Juilliard offered you that scholarship. Life offered me something else, she interrupted. I chose what mattered most. Do you resent me? He asked, the question that had haunted him for years. She considered this, her profile illuminated by porch light. I resented that you didn't think I was strong enough to hear the truth. That you left without giving me a choice in our stories. Ending. I thought I was protecting you from waiting for something that might never happen. You were protecting yourself from the responsibility of being loved, she corrected gently. I never asked you to give up Nashville. I only asked to face it together. The truth of her words settled between them, undeniable. After you left, she continued, I had to rebuild everything. My plans, my identity, my heart. And then Dad got sick, and rebuilding became a way of life. She turned to face him. I don't resent what you did, Nathan, but I won't pretend it didn't change me. You're remarkable, he said honestly. Everything you've built here, the shop, the music program, the way you care for your father, it's more significant than anything I've accomplished. That's not true. I've heard your recordings. Your Nashville career is empty, he finished. Studio musicians are replaceable. I play what others write, back up the real stars. I haven't written an original song since I left Cedarbrook. The admission hung in the night air, the first truly honest thing he'd said since returning. Why not? She asked softly. Nathan looked at his hands, calloused from thousands of hours playing other people's music. Because the only songs that mattered were the ones I wrote with you. Composing Forgiveness, dark clouds gathered over Cedarbrook Lake the following afternoon, as Nathan helped his grandfather sort through medical paperwork at the cabin. Joe watched him with knowing eyes as thunder rumbled in the distance. Festival's in 3 days, Joe remarked. Planning to stick around for it? I haven't decided, Nathan replied, though the Nashville session he'd rescheduled loomed on his calendar. Heard you and Olivia reworked Lake Water Reflections. Bernie says it's the best version he's ever heard. Nathan smiled despite himself. She's incredible, Grandpa. What she's done with the music shop, caring for Thomas, teaching, while having her heart broken, Joe added pointedly. Don't forget that part. I haven't forgotten anything, Nathan said quietly. That's the problem. The sky opened then, rain pelting the cabin roof with sudden ferocity. Nathan's phone buzzed with a weather alert. Flash flood warnings, roads closing. Minutes later, another buzz. A text from Olivia. Dad's at Monica's tonight. I'm stranded near the lake. Any chance I could wait out the storm at Joe's place? 20 minutes later, Olivia arrived on the porch, drenched despite her raincoat. My car couldn't make it past the creek crossing, she explained, accepting the towel Nathan offered. The water was too high. Joe emerged from his bedroom with a knowing smile. Storm's getting worse. I'll make some hot chocolate and then turn in early. These old bones need rest. Soon they were alone in the living room, fireplace crackling, rain lashing the windows. Olivia wrapped herself in a quilt Nathan recognized from childhood visits. Your grandfather hasn't changed a thing in this place, she observed. Glancing around. Some things are worth preserving, Nathan replied, stoking the fire. The old upright piano stood in the corner, its worn bench inviting. Nathan gestured toward it. Play something? Olivia hesitated, then moved to the instrument, running her fingers lightly over the keys. It needs tuning. It always needed tuning. Never stopped us before. She began a simple melody, one of the first pieces they'd written together as teenagers. Without thinking, Nathan retrieved his guitar, joining her halfway through. The familiar interplay of piano and guitar filled the cabin, weaving between raindrops and thunder. When the song ended, Olivia remained at the piano, her back to him. "I almost followed you, you know," Nathan stilled. "What?" "After you left. I packed a bag, bought a bus ticket to Nashville. I was going to show up at your door and tell you that you didn't get to decide our story alone. What stopped you?" Her fingers traced a silent melody on the keys. "Dad had his first major episode the morning I planned to leave. The doctor said he needed consistent care, familiar surroundings. The decision made itself." Nathan set his guitar aside, moved to the piano bench, careful to maintain distance between them. "I looked for you," he admitted. "In every audience, every crowded street. For years I'd see auburn hair or hear a laugh like yours and my heart would stop. Why didn't you ever call?" "Right? Anything?" "Pride. Fear. The longer I stayed away, the more impossible return seemed." He shook his head. "I convinced myself you were better off without me." "That wasn't your choice to make. I know that now." Outside, lightning flashed, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. The cabin lights flickered, then died, leaving only firelight dancing across the walls. "Perfect," Olivia sighed. "Just perfect." Nathan found candles in the kitchen drawer, arranging them on the coffee table. In the golden glow, they faced each other properly for the first time since his return. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "Not just for leaving, but for how I left." "You deserved better." "I did," she agreed. "But that doesn't mean I stopped caring what happened to you." The admission hung between them, delicate as spun glass. "The night before I left," Nathan said carefully, "you told me that love shouldn't be a cage, that if we loved each other enough, distance wouldn't matter." "I remember." "I was terrified that you were wrong, that distance would matter, that we'd grow to resent each other. I thought a clean break would hurt less than a slow unraveling." Olivia's eyes reflected candlelight. "And now? Now I know that the cage was never love, it was fear. My fear." He reached across the space between them, not quite touching her. "I've missed you, Leave. Not just what we were, but who we could have been." She studied his face in the flickering light. "I'm not the same girl who loved you at 18. I wouldn't want you to be. I love who you've become. Strong, dedicated, uncompromising." The word love escaped before he could catch it hanging in the air between them. Olivia's breath caught. "You don't know me anymore. Then let me learn you again," he said softly. "Let me stay for the festival. For a little longer. And then what? You'll go back to Nashville and we'll have another goodbye to survive?" Instead of answering, Nathan moved to the piano, positioning his hands above the keys. He began to play. Not one of their old songs, but something new, something that had been forming inside him since he'd returned to Cedar Brook. It was unpolished, raw, but undeniably honest. After a moment, Olivia joined him, adding harmonies that complemented his melody perfectly, as though she could read the music directly from his heart. Together, they composed something neither could have created alone. While the storm raged and receded outside, when the final chord faded, Nathan looked up to find tears in Olivia's eyes. "You're still writing," she whispered. "Only since I came home," he replied, the truth of the word settling into his bones. Home. They stayed like that, side by side on the piano bench, until the candles burned low and the rain gentled to a soft patter against the roof. In that quiet space between storm and calm, something broken began, tentatively, to mend. Returning cadence, the day of the Cedar Brook Fall Music Festival dawned clear and crisp, leaves crunching underfoot as residents spread blankets on the lakefront park. The stage, decorated with autumn foliage and twinkling lights, waited for evening performances to begin. Nathan paced backstage, fingers moving through chord progressions without his guitar. The past 2 days had been a whirlwind of rehearsals, preparations, and stolen moments with Olivia, rebuilding trust over coffee, reminiscing during sound checks, carefully navigating the fragile new understanding between them. His phone buzzed, his Nashville producer, the third call this morning. Nathan silenced it again. He'd need to make decisions soon, but not yet. Not today. Nervous? Joe appeared at his side, looking stronger than he had in weeks. The prodigal grandson performing for his hometown. Something like that, Nathan admitted. Have you seen Olivia? With Thomas. She's bringing him for the finale. First time he's been to the festival in 2 years. The thought added pressure. Thomas Winters had been Nathan's first guitar teacher, long before he became Olivia's father. The man who'd told a gangly 13-year-old boy that music wasn't just about playing notes, but about telling truth. The children's choir opened the festival, followed by a procession of local talents. The high school band, a folk trio, Bernie Walsh's saxophone solo. As twilight descended, lights illuminated the stage for the final performances. Nathan watched from the wings as Olivia introduced the Cedarbrook Community Orchestra, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd. She'd worn her hair down tonight, the auburn waves catching golden stage light. When she moved to the piano for the penultimate number, her poise and confidence commanded attention from every corner of the park. Then it was time. Their arrangement of Lakewater Reflections, the traditional closing piece, reimagined through their renewed connection. As Nathan stepped onto the stage, guitar in hand, he spotted Thomas in the front row, seated in a wheelchair beside Monica. The older man's eyes tracked Nathan's movements with unusual sharpness. Olivia nodded once as Nathan took his position. The audience fell silent as her fingers touched the keys, beginning the familiar introduction that had closed every festival for decades. Nathan's guitar joined, following the melody they'd rehearsed. But halfway through, Olivia deviated from their arrangement, transitioning seamlessly into the new piece they'd composed during the storm. Nathan followed without hesitation, their instruments conversing in musical phrases that spoke of separation and return, loss and rediscovery. The audience leaned forward, collectively recognizing that they were witnessing something unprecedented, a new tradition being born from the foundations of the old. When the final notes resonated across the lake, silence held for 3 heartbeats before applause erupted, people rising to their feet. Thomas Winters was among them, standing shakily from his wheelchair, his weathered hands applauding with surprising vigor. As they took their bows, Nathan caught Olivia's gaze. "That wasn't what we rehearsed," he whispered. "Some songs write themselves," she replied. Her smile reaching her eyes at last, after the performance, well-wishers surrounded them. "Congratulations!" Reminiscences, questions about Nashville, Nathan answered politely, but his attention remained fixed on Olivia, who knelt beside her father's wheelchair. "Beautiful," Thomas was saying, with crystal clarity that sometimes emerged from the fog of his condition. "You found your harmony again." When the crowd finally dispersed, Nathan walked with Olivia and Thomas along the moonlit shore. Monica had gone ahead to prepare the house, leaving them in comfortable silence broken only by lapping waves. "I had a call from my producer today," Nathan said finally. "The session I postponed, they need an answer by morning." Olivia nodded, her expression carefully neutral. "Of course. Your life is waiting." "That's just it." Nathan stopped, turning to face her. "I'm not sure it is. My life, I mean." Thomas had wandered a few steps ahead, examining a flowering bush with childlike fascination. "What are you saying?" Olivia asked. "I've been thinking about something you said, about choices and what matters most." Nathan took a deep breath. "I want to come home, Liv, not because I've failed in Nashville, but because I've succeeded enough to know it's not where I belong." Hope and wariness battled in her expression. "And what would you do in Cedarbrook?" "There aren't many opportunities for session guitarists here." "No, but there's a music shop that could use a repair specialist. Your father taught me enough about instrument crafting to start." He gestured toward Thomas. "And there's a generation of kids who deserve to learn music from someone who's seen both sides of the dream." "You'd give up Nashville?" "Just like that?" Not give up, he corrected. Choose differently. I've already talked to my producer about remote recording possibilities. Technology makes distance workable these days, for careers and for hearts. Thomas wandered back, inserting himself into their conversation with unexpected lucidity. The cedar guitar, he said, pointing at Nathan. You play it now. Not yet, Nathan replied gently. But I'd like to earn that right someday. Thomas nodded, seemingly satisfied, then continued down the shoreline, humming the melody they'd performed. He remembers your promise, Olivia said softly. The one about coming back for his best instrument when you'd become worthy of it. I wasn't worthy then, Nathan acknowledged. Maybe I'm still not, but I'd like the chance to try, to build something real here, with you if you'll let me. Olivia studied him in the moonlight, the wariness in her eyes softening. Leaving was easy, she reminded him. Staying is the harder part. I'm ready for harder, he said, reaching for her hand. If you are? For a moment she didn't respond. Then her fingers interlaced with his, tentatively at first. Then with growing certainty. I think, she said finally. We have a new song to finish writing. Above them, stars reflected in Cedar Brook Lake like musical notes scattered across the darkened water. Fragments of melody waiting to be gathered into something whole, something lasting. And for the first time in 10 years, Nathan felt the hollow space within him begin to fill with the sweetest sound he knew, the possibility of home. In the distance, Thomas Winters turned, watching his daughter and the boy who had finally returned. A smile of recognition crossed his face. Not of names or places, but of the eternal truth that some harmonies, once created, never truly disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to be heard again.